You ever live with someone who makes you question your own sanity? It started off pretty normal. I found Casey through a sublet ad on Facebook. He was friendly, polite, soft spoken, maybe a little too polite, actually. Always smiling, always nodding, like he was rehearsing human behavior. I chalked it up to social awkwardness. God knows I'm no extrovert either. The apartment was in a quiet neighborhood, top floor of a duplex, two bedrooms, small kitchen, drafty windows. Rent was cheap, and Casey even offered to let me have the bigger room for no extra cost. I don't need much space, he said. I just like company. That line stuck with me, though I didn't know why at the time. The first time it happened was maybe a week in. I came home after a long shift at the bookstore, pulled out my key, and it wouldn't fit. Not just jamming, it flat out didn't go in, like it was the wrong lock entirely. I banged on the door for 15 minutes until Casey finally opened it, blinking like I'd woken him from a dream. I changed the locks, he said, smiling like it was totally normal. You never know who might have a copy of the old ones. Safety, you know? I asked why he hadn't told me. He shrugged and said, I thought I did. He hadn't. I would have remembered. I'm obsessive about that kind of thing. I keep notes on my phone for every little detail, laundry cycles, grocery lists, even how many eggs I've got left. But I brushed it off. People make mistakes. A few days later, I noticed my bedroom door was locked when I came home. I didn't lock it. Hell, I didn't even know it could lock from the outside. When I asked Casey, he said, I thought you'd want your things to be safe. From who? We were the only two people in the apartment. I tried to laugh it off, but something in his expression didn't match his words. His smile never touched his eyes. They just stared, always too long, too intently. Like he was watching a fly he wanted to pull the wings off. Then came the small things, groceries vanishing. My toothbrush moved. My underwear folded in perfect military tight squares that I never folded that way. Emails sent from my laptop that I didn't write. One was to my boss, asking for time off. I confronted him again. I thought you said I could use your computer. He replied, all sweetness and concern. I had to check something for work. I never said that. I never would. I locked my screen religiously. I decided to keep my bedroom door shut with a chair wedged under the knob at night. That's when I started hearing the click, click of the handle turning. At 3 a.m., like clockwork. He never tried to force it, just turned it. Slow, patient, curious. One night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in bed, eyes open, hand clutched around a baseball bat. I waited for the sound. 3:02 a.m., it came. Click, click. But this time, I didn't stay silent. I shouted, Casey, I know it's you. The noise stopped. Silence for a full minute, then footsteps retreating down the hall. In the morning, I found a note slipped under my door. You talk in your sleep. You should really see someone about that. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't call the cops. What could I say? My roommate stares too long and opens doors. I'd sound paranoid. Besides, I couldn't afford to break the lease. Then came the night I couldn't pretend anymore. It was raining. Heavy, cold. I woke up soaked in sweat, my sheets clinging to me. I couldn't move. I couldn't blink. My eyes were open, but my body was frozen, full-on sleep paralysis. I could only stare at the ceiling fan, spinning slowly above. And then I saw him, standing over me, Casey. His face inches from mine, his pupils blown wide like an animal's. His breathing was shallow, controlled, almost reverent. He wasn't blinking, just watching me like a specimen. And then he whispered, I just wanted to see what you'd look like without your eyes. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. I was frozen inside my own skull. When I finally jolted awake, really awake, he was gone. The door was shut, but the chair I'd wedged beneath the knob was across the room. I packed that morning. I didn't shower. I didn't eat. I left my mattress, half my clothes, even my laptop. I just threw what I could into my duffel bag and walked out. I didn't even lock the door behind me. A week later, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. I played it twice before deleting it. It was Casey's voice. Hey, he said softly, almost hurt. You forgot your baseball bat. Don't worry. I'll keep it for you. You'll need it when you come back. I never answered, never went back. But I still wake up sometimes at 3:02 a.m., heart hammering, convinced there's someone just outside my door, turning the handle ever so slowly. After the breakup with Rachel, I felt like a ghost. We'd lived together for 3 years. I was the one who left, but it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like being untethered, floating through life with nothing to anchor me. No home, no plan, no sleep. I found Marla's ad in a neighborhood Facebook group. Room available, quiet home, must like cats. That was it. No photos, no price, just an address. I didn't care. I showed up at the old house on Tuesday, everything I owned stuffed into a duffel bag and a laundry basket. Marla answered the door like she'd been standing just on the other side, waiting. She was tall, pale, with mousy brown hair and the largest, darkest eyes I'd ever seen. They made her look perpetually tired, or haunted. She wore a black turtleneck despite the July heat and spoke softly, like the words didn't want to leave her mouth. "You must be Evan," she said. That's all. No welcome, no handshake, just confirmation, as if I'd already agreed to something I didn't remember. The house had an odd presence. It creaked even when no one moved. The walls looked stained with age, splotchy gray patches on the ceiling, water rings on the floor. The air smelled faintly metallic, like blood diluted in water. But under it, something else, something foul, like meat, long past its expiration, wrapped in plastic to hide its rot. I told myself I was being dramatic. Too many sleepless nights, too much time alone in my head. Marla showed me the room, small but livable. The bed frame sat low to the ground, a queen mattress resting on a wooden platform. "He doesn't like too much space beneath," she said as I set my bag down. "Who?" I asked, glancing under the bed. "Just empty darkness." She smiled faintly. "You'll see." The first night I couldn't sleep, not because of the smell or the way the walls seemed to breathe, but because I felt watched. You know that feeling? Like someone's eyes are pressing on your skin even when you're alone? It was that, only worse. I kept thinking I heard breathing, slow, damp, and irregular, but every time I sat up, it stopped. Maybe it was Marla, maybe the pipes, maybe the house was just old. I turned on the fan for white noise and finally drifted off around 4 a.m. But then I woke up again. 2:43 a.m. I remember the exact time. That breath was back, not outside the room, not in the hallway, under the bed. I froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. The sound wasn't loud, but it was there, rasping and wet, like someone drowning very slowly. It didn't move. It didn't whisper, it breathed. I swung my legs over the side, heart hammering, and crouched down. Nothing. The sound stopped the second I looked. I laughed at myself. Shakily. Told myself it was stress, but I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I found Marla in the kitchen, petting a black cat I hadn't seen before. "I didn't know you had a cat," I said. She didn't look up. "I don't." "Then whose?" "He visits sometimes," she said. "They know where it is." I had no idea what she meant, and I didn't ask. She always said things like that, cryptic, half sentences that she never explained, like the time she told me to leave my closet door open at night so it doesn't get curious. Or when she said, completely out of nowhere, "It doesn't like when you laugh." The breathing came back every night, always around 2:30 to 3 a.m. I started recording on my phone, just placing it on the edge of the bed, microphone pointed downward. In the morning, I'd listen. The first few times, there was nothing. Then came the fourth night, raspy breathing close to the mic, then a low, guttural clicking, like teeth snapping softly. Something whispered, impossibly soft, a sound more felt than heard. It said, "Eh." I dropped the phone. My entire body went cold. I tried to confront Marla again. I asked her if she'd ever heard anything at night. She didn't respond, just stared at me with those enormous eyes until I backed off. "You talk in your sleep," she said later. That's probably all it was. I never talked in my sleep before. But after that, I started waking up with my mouth open, my throat raw. I had scratches down my arms, too small to be mine, too shallow to bleed, but just deep enough to sting. One night, I drank myself to sleep. It worked until 2:47 a.m. I woke to the sound of something dragging beneath my bed. Not a rat, not a mouse, something with nails. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just lay there, frozen as it scraped softly across the wood, breathing like it had lungs full of mold and dust. Then it stopped, and I felt weight, as if someone or something was lying underneath me, pressing up against the mattress from below. I slept on the couch for 2 nights after that. Marla didn't ask why. She just passed me in the hallway and said, "He misses you." I tried to leave. I told her I was done, that I couldn't sleep here anymore. She just stared at me and said, "It won't let you go. Not yet." I laughed, bitterly, called her crazy. But when I went to the front door, it wouldn't open. Not like it was stuck, like it was part of the wall. The handle twisted, but nothing moved. I tried the windows, nailed shut. Tried the back, locked from the outside. I even tried smashing the kitchen window with a chair. The glass didn't crack. Marla never stopped me. She just watched, head tilted. "It remembers who you are now," she whispered. "That's how it keeps you." On the ninth night, I decided to kill it. I know how that sounds, but something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to be hunted like an animal. I was done feeling like prey. I went to the garage, found an old metal crowbar, and waited in bed with the lights off. Just before 3 a.m., I heard it. That breath, that scratching, and slowly something began sliding out from under the bed. I didn't look. I just waited until I felt the pressure weight near my feet. Then I swung the crowbar down as hard as I could. It hit something, but it wasn't flesh. It was like striking wet leaves or mold, or the crowbar bent, not from force. It bent like it had melted. I threw it and ran to the bathroom, locking the door. I stayed in there until daylight. I still don't know what I hit. All I remember is the smell, like dead things kept warm too long. The next morning, my mattress was torn open, stuffing scattered like snow. The bed frame cracked in half. Marla came in without knocking. She looked down at the wreckage, then at me. "It's part of the house now," she said, "and now so are you." I asked her what she meant. She finally sat down and told me the truth, or at least her version of it. There was no original owner, no lease, no paperwork. She'd lived here for 17 years, ever since she found it. Or maybe it found her. "It comes through the dark places," she said. "The parts of a house we forget about, the cracks, the crawl spaces, the silence." She tried to leave once, years ago. Same thing. The door wouldn't open, the windows wouldn't break. "But I'm not afraid of it anymore," she said. "You will be for a while, but eventually you'll learn to live with it. And it'll learn to live with you." That was a year ago. I don't try to leave anymore. I don't talk back. I keep my lights off at night. I sleep with my limbs on the mattress, never dangling. I whisper its name even though I don't know what it means. And when I hear it breathing underneath my bed, I whisper back, "I'm still here." Because I know it likes that. I didn't think anything of it at first. Jason was just a guy from Craigslist. Clean cut, good references. He showed up to the interview early and offered to help me fix a dripping faucet before we even agreed on the lease. Seemed like a godsend after weeks of flaky responses and borderline creeps messaging me about the room. He was quiet, neat, polite, the kind of person who apologized for microwaving fish or using too much of my almond milk. In other words, the ideal roommate. I signed him onto the lease the same week, and for the first month, things were fine. He mostly kept to himself, worked nights at some warehouse on the edge of town, and said he liked to sleep during the day. Sometimes I barely saw him for 3 days at a time. The only strange thing? He never locked his door. Not once. It stayed cracked open, just a sliver, always, even when he wasn't home, even when I knew he was sleeping inside. I figured he was just forgetful. I'd close it for him sometimes and come back an hour later to find it slightly open again. Always that same gap, 2 inches, enough to see the edge of his bed, the worn black boots he always placed neatly underneath it. Whatever. Everyone has quirks. Then I started waking up in the middle of the night. It was always the same way. Bolt upright, heart pounding, like something had pulled me out of sleep by the throat. There'd be a noise in the hall, a soft creak of the floorboard outside my door, or the whisper of movement, too subtle to pin down. I figured Jason was just getting home late, but the weird part? Sometimes his boots would already be under the bed when I checked, and he never said a word about it. I asked him once, casually, if he ever had trouble sleeping, if maybe he paced at night. He smiled. "Nah, I sleep like the dead." Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. I started locking my door at night. It wasn't that I was afraid of him. Not exactly. But something about the apartment felt different lately. Like the walls had grown thinner. Like someone or something was always just on the other side. The feeling was worst around 3 a.m. That's when I'd wake, heart racing, breath shallow, convinced someone was watching me. Not just watching, studying, like a lab rat behind glass. Then came the night I saw him. It was about 2:30. I'd gone to the kitchen for water and passed by his room. His door, as always, was slightly ajar. I paused, drawn to the sliver of darkness inside. And I saw him, standing beside his bed, not lying in it, not sleeping, just standing, perfectly still, facing the wall. His hands were at his sides, fists clenched. He didn't move, didn't sway, just stood there like someone had frozen him mid-action. I whispered his name. Nothing. I stepped a little closer, the floorboard groaning beneath me, and he turned. Not suddenly, not like a person would. He turned slowly, mechanically, his head swiveling before his shoulders. His eyes found mine, and for just a second I saw something in them I can't describe. Not recognition, not confusion, just emptiness. Then he smiled. Just a twitch of the lips. "Can't sleep?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just backed away and went into my room, locking the door. The next morning he was chipper, making eggs, humming to himself. I told him I thought I saw him awake last night. "I don't think so," he said. I was out cold, dreamless sleep. After that, I started having nightmares, not vague ones either. I remembered them in sharp detail. In every dream, I was lying in bed, completely paralyzed. Jason stood in the corner, watching me, always in shadow, always still. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, breath caught in my throat like I'd been choking. I bought a motion sensor camera and aimed it at my bed, just to ease my mind, just to prove it was all in my head. It caught movement the very first night. At 3:06 a.m., the door creaked open. Slowly, silently. Jason stepped in. He didn't do anything, didn't say anything. He just stood at the foot of my bed for 4 full minutes. Then he walked out. I confronted him the next day. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. He looked at the footage without saying a word. No reaction, no shock. Just studied it calmly. Then he looked at me and said, "That's not me." "What the hell do you mean that's not you?" "I mean, I was asleep. I don't remember doing that." "That is you." He didn't argue. He just nodded, turned, and went back to his room. After that, it escalated. Some nights I'd wake up to find my door wide open. Other times my bed sheets would be different, tucked in when I hadn't tucked them, or slightly damp, like someone had laid down in them while I was gone. I stopped sleeping, started crashing at friends' places. But whenever I came back, there were signs, little reminders. Jason never asked where I went, never commented on the bags under my eyes or the fact that I had lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. And then one night, I stayed home. I wanted proof. Real, undeniable proof. I set up 2 cameras this time. One in my room, one hidden in the hallway. I locked the door. I put a chair against it. I turned on the white noise and waited, lying awake with my phone recording audio under the bed. At 3:13 a.m., the white noise stopped, not like someone turned it off, like it got eaten, replaced by silence so total it hummed. Then I heard the door creak, slowly. The chair didn't move. It just wasn't there anymore. Jason stepped into the room. He walked slowly, barefoot, his eyes glassy, but this time he was smiling. He sat in the chair beside the bed and just watched me, not blinking, just watching. I was so scared I didn't move. I lay there, pretending to be asleep, breath shallow, heart pounding like a drum. After 5 minutes, he stood up and leaned over me. His breath hit my face, cold, stale. And then he whispered, "You sleep with your mouth open." Then he left. I left the next day, didn't pack, didn't say goodbye. I just walked out and never looked back. But that's not the end. The footage, when I played it back, he never appears. The door opens, the chair moves, but there's no one there, just me. Frozen, breathing hard, talking in my sleep, saying things like, "Jason, please stop," and "Why can't I move?" And finally, "Yes, okay, I'll let you in." I don't know where Jason is now. The building manager said he moved out a month later, left everything behind, clothes, laptop, toothbrush, just gone. Sometimes I think I still see him, in my dreams or standing across the street from my new place, not moving, watching, not smiling anymore, just waiting. When I first met Danny, I honestly thought she might be the best roommate I'd ever have. She was friendly without being clingy, clean without being obsessive. We hit it off right away. Both recent college grads, both new to the city, both trying to scrape by in a tiny two-bedroom in a converted Victorian that smelled permanently of old radiator heat and forgotten mold. She moved in on a Sunday, brought just a few bags, a mattress, and a box of vintage horror VHS tapes she'd thrifted over the years. "I'm kind of a collector," she said with a sheepish grin. "Bad taste in movies, good taste in snacks." We stayed up that night watching Sleepaway Camp, eating popcorn and sharing breakup stories. It was easy, effortless. Living with Danny felt like reclaiming a kind of college-era innocence I thought I'd lost forever. For the first month, things were great. Then she started disappearing. It began subtly. She'd be gone for a night, no big deal. I figured she was seeing someone. She was cagey about her dating life, always brushing it off with vague jokes. Then she was gone for 2 nights, then 3, then 5. When she came back, she looked off, pale, sweaty. Her usually bright green eyes were dull and bloodshot, and she moved like she'd been up for days. "You okay?" I asked as she dumped her bag by the door. "Yeah," she said, her voice hoarse. "Just needed some air." That was it. No apology, no explanation. And then she went straight to her room and shut the door. After that, the disappearances grew longer, stranger. Sometimes she'd vanish for a full week. No texts, no calls, her phone going straight to voicemail. Then, without warning, she'd reappear like nothing had happened. No explanation, no luggage. And every time she came back, something was different about her. Her hair would be subtly darker or lighter. Once it was longer, then shorter the next week. Her voice would change slightly, accented almost. Her laugh got lower, her posture slouched. Even her smell changed. That sounds crazy, but I swear she didn't smell like Danny anymore. She smelled like basement air and wilted roses, like mildew soaked into fabric. I began to wonder if she was doing drugs, or if she was sick, maybe bipolar. I was worried, but I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding accusatory. I just kept smiling, making her coffee, hoping she'd open up. She never did. Then she stopped sleeping in her room. I'd wake up to pee in the middle of the night and see her sitting in the living room, lights off, just staring out the window. I asked her what she was doing once. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Watching for the one that followed me back." Her voice was completely flat. Empty. "The one what?" I asked, trying to keep it light. She turned to me slowly. Her eyes were wide, unblinking. "They don't like when you notice," she whispered. "It makes them stick." I laughed nervously. "You mean like stalkers?" She didn't laugh. Around this time, the apartment started feeling wrong. The hallway light would flicker randomly. My bedroom would be ice cold in the morning, even with the heater on. Things would go missing: keys, books, my toothbrush. I blamed Danny at first. Maybe she was sleepwalking or messing with me. Maybe she was doing some bizarre performance art project she hadn't told me about. But one night I heard her talking in her room. At least I thought it was her. The voice sounded like her, but off. Slower, like her mouth wasn't working right. I pressed my ear to her door and froze. There were 2 voices, both whispering. One hers, one much, much deeper. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone, pleading, urgent. Then the sound of something wet moving across the floor and a low thump like a body falling sideways onto a mattress. I stepped back, the door creaked. The voices stopped instantly. A moment later, Danny opened the door. But it wasn't her. Not really. Her skin looked waxy, her eyes glassy, and the way she smiled at me, it wasn't a human smile. It was a mask of a smile. "Couldn't sleep," she said. I didn't respond. The next day, she was gone again. I knocked on her door around noon, and there was no answer. I tried the knob. It was unlocked. Her room looked off. It had always been messy before. Clothes, books, art supplies scattered everywhere. But now it was almost empty. Bed stripped, closet open and bare, the air smelled damp and coppery. The only thing left was her box of horror VHS tapes and one new edition, a tape labeled in smeared Sharpie, "Me." I didn't watch it. Not then. I called her, straight to voicemail. I texted, "Where did you go? Are you okay?" An hour later, I got a reply, "I'm not me anymore. Don't trust the one that comes next." I didn't know what the hell that meant. I didn't want to know. That night, I slept with the lights on. She came back 3 nights later, but everything inside me said it wasn't her. She looked like Danny. Same face, same hair, same voice. But she was wrong in ways I couldn't explain. Her movements were jerky, delayed, like she was trying to mimic how humans walk, but only got 90% of it right. She smiled too much, didn't blink often enough. And when I asked where she'd been, she said, home. But the word sounded foreign in her mouth, like she didn't know what it meant. I started avoiding her after that, but she didn't avoid me. She began standing outside my room at night, just standing. I'd wake up and see her shadow under the door, unmoving for hours. I started recording with my phone again. The audio terrified me. One night, I caught her whispering, "You'll be better. You'll last longer. You'll taste like light." Another night, "It wants you now. I gave it my face. It wants yours too." I tried to leave the next morning. The front door wouldn't open, not like it was stuck. It was sealed. The frame didn't even have a seam anymore, just a flat wall where the door used to be. I tried the window. The fire escape was gone. Just gone. I screamed. I cried. I begged her to let me out. She stood in the kitchen, slicing an apple so slowly the juice ran down her wrists like blood. She said, "You shouldn't scream. It gets excited." That night, I locked myself in the bathroom. She came to the door and scratched it, not knocked. Scratched. I pressed my head to the cool tile floor and cried, trying not to make a sound. I heard her whisper, "It's almost ready, then you'll go where I went. Then you'll know what I brought back." Sometime after 3 a.m., it got quiet. I opened the door slowly, holding my breath. She was gone. The lights were out. The kitchen was empty. I crept into the hallway and saw her door was open. Inside, the room was empty again, except for the VHS tape, now labeled "You." I watched it this time. The footage was grainy, black and white. It showed me, sleeping, tossing, talking. Then it cut to Danny, only not Danny, sitting in the corner of my room, watching. And behind her, in the shadow, something moved, tall, boneless, all teeth and wet eyes, then static. I woke up hours later on the floor, the tape still playing white noise. The front door was back. I left without packing. I've never returned. I still don't know where Danny went or what she let in, but sometimes I see people on the subway who look like her. Only their eyes are too wide, and they never blink. When I first moved to Chicago for grad school, I was so desperate to find a place that I didn't question how cheap the rent was. That should have been my first red flag. It was a 3-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park, beautiful old brownstone, hardwood floors, big bay windows, rent split 3 ways. My new roommate, Kira, had already been living there a year, and another girl, Hannah, was about to move in too. Kira said she'd signed the lease for both of them, so technically I was the last one to join. Kira was cool. Almost too cool. One of those artsy girls who wore ripped tights, vintage coats, and smeared red lipstick like armor. She was studying experimental film and always seemed to be editing something on her MacBook while chain-smoking out the fire escape. She was intense, but I liked her. When I moved in, Hannah wasn't around. Kira said she was out of town visiting family. I didn't think much of it. People travel. For the first 2 weeks, it was just Kira and me. She had weird habits, played strange ambient music late at night, kept the kitchen spotless, but let her room rot, but I chalked it up to artist quirks. Then Hannah came home, except she never left her room. I heard her arrive one night around 2 a.m. Heavy footsteps, door creaking, a suitcase rolling across the floor. I expected to meet her the next morning, made extra coffee, waited in the kitchen, but she never came out. I asked Kira about it and she shrugged. She keeps weird hours, insomniac, kind of reclusive. Still, after 3 days and no sign of her, I knocked on her door. Softly, no answer. I tried again that night, just to say hi. Still nothing. But I heard her, pacing, whispering, moving things around in her room, and always, without fail, that soft creak of her door opening just a crack in the dead of night. By the end of the second week, I started to feel like I was living with a ghost. I'd wake up to find the bathroom light on, the mirror fogged like someone had just showered. Towels damp. Once I found a toothbrush in the sink that didn't belong to me or Kira, one of those cheap, clear ones you get from a dentist's office. Another time, I opened the fridge and all of my yogurt was gone. But the lid was placed back perfectly on the empty carton, like someone had been trying to hide it. The weirdest part? Kira never mentioned her, never talked to her, never even seemed to acknowledge her. So I finally asked, "Hey, does Hannah ever, talk to you?" Kira looked up from her laptop and gave me this tired, knowing smile. She's just private. Let her be. That was it. Let her be. A few nights later, I heard something that made my skin crawl. I'd gotten up to grab water around 3 a.m. As I walked past Hannah's door, I heard something. Breathing, but not like normal breathing. It was ragged, like she'd been crying or hyperventilating. I leaned in, concerned. That's when she spoke, but the voice didn't sound right. It was high-pitched, childlike. She whispered, "Don't look at me, please. It's not on right." I stepped back so fast I nearly tripped. Her door creaked open slightly. I saw her eye, just one, peering out through the crack. It was too wide, too white, and it didn't blink. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I confronted Kira. I'd had enough. "What's going on with Hannah?" She didn't even look up from her cigarette, just said, "Some people don't come back right when they leave. Sometimes they leave parts of themselves behind." I stared at her, waiting for her to explain, but she just kept puffing like it was the most normal thing in the world. That's when I noticed something weird. There were no photos of Hannah anywhere. None. No shoes by the door, no jacket on the hooks. Her door was the only one without a name label on the mailbox. I checked the lease. Only Kira and I were listed. That night, I waited until I heard the pacing start again. I pressed my ear to Hannah's door. There was no whispering this time, just movement. Fast, agitated movement, like someone walking in tight circles. Then a loud thump, something heavy falling. I turned the doorknob slowly. It wasn't locked. I pushed the door open a few inches, heart pounding. The room inside was dark, colder than the rest of the apartment. At first, I saw nothing. Then my eyes adjusted. There were drawings, hundreds, taped to every inch of the walls. Black and white sketches of faces, the same face over and over, wide eyes, long hair, a mouth drawn on crookedly. In the middle of the room was a mannequin, just standing there. Its face was blank, but a wig had been placed on its head and a crude smile was painted on with lipstick. And sitting beside it on the floor, knees to chest, was Hannah, or at least something that looked like her. She turned slowly toward me. Her eyes were too big, too wet, and her mouth, it twitched. It fits better when I don't move. I slammed the door and ran, tried to leave the apartment. The front door wouldn't open. I screamed for Kira. She didn't come out, so I banged on her door, desperate, shaking. She finally answered, calm as ever. "You opened the door, didn't you?" She said, "She told you not to." I begged her to tell me what was going on. She just sighed and said, "She used to be real. That's the problem." Then she shut the door again. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit. I just stood in the living room, staring down the hallway toward Hannah's room. At one point, her door creaked open. I couldn't see her, but I could feel her, watching me. The next morning, her door was closed again. The apartment was silent. I took a deep breath and walked over to it. It was locked. I knocked softly. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. I walked away. Later that day, Kira told me Hannah was gone again. Where, I didn't ask. I started researching the apartment. I couldn't find anything on a Hannah ever living there. But I did find a death notice. 10 years ago, a girl named Hannah R. Blake, 22, art student, died in a house fire on the same block. It didn't list the address, just said she'd lived in a third-floor apartment, died of smoke inhalation, wasn't discovered for days. She had no family, no visitors, just a roommate who refused to speak to the press. I confronted Kira one last time. "Is Hannah real?" I asked. She just stared at me, then said, "She was, but she stayed too long and now the parts that didn't burn want company." That was it. That night, I tried to sleep with a knife under my pillow, but sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up. The knife was gone, and someone was sitting at the foot of my bed. I didn't look. I couldn't look, but I heard the voice. Soft, pleading. "It's so hard to stay without a face. Could I wear yours? Just for a little while." I screamed, fumbled for my lamp, turned it on. No one was there. But the door to my room was open, and there were footprints on the rug. Bare, wet footprints, leading in and leading back out. I left the next day, didn't say goodbye, didn't pack. I just left. Filed a police report about an intruder. They checked the place, found no signs of forced entry, no one in the third bedroom. In fact, they told me there wasn't a third bedroom, just two. They walked me through the unit again. The hallway was shorter. The door to Hannah's room, gone, like it had never been there. Kira texted me a week later. "She's still here, quieter now, but she remembers you. I blocked her, But sometimes, late at night, I hear knocking, soft, uncertain, like someone trying to remember how to knock with hands that aren't quite theirs. I used to think I was a rational person. I believed in bills, leases, fire alarms, turning off the lights when you leave the room. I believed that the noises you hear in old houses are pipes or wind or rodents. I believed people couldn't just be in your home without you knowing. I don't believe that anymore. I moved into the basement unit of a 3-story house in Portland. It had its own entrance, a little kitchenette, and a view of the overgrown backyard. It was cheap, mostly because the house was old and creaky, and the upstairs unit was always occupied by rotating tenants who moved in and out every few months. When I first moved in, the property manager told me, "You'll barely hear them. The sound insulation's pretty good. Just text me if you have issues." That was enough for me. I didn't care about creaks. I was a grad student, broke and tired. Privacy and a door that locked were all I needed. The first few weeks were peaceful. Then the noises started. At first, it was just footsteps. Soft. Pacing. Directly above my bed, every night around 3 a.m., I assumed it was the tenant upstairs. I didn't know their name yet, had only seen them once, hunched and silent, coming in late one night with the hood of their coat pulled up, but I figured they were just a night owl, maybe an insomniac. But then I heard the footsteps during the day, and I knew no one was home, because the driveway was empty, because I knocked on the front door and no one answered, because I listened at the stairs leading up to the top floor and the air felt still. Dead. Yet every night, like clockwork, 3:08 a.m., the pacing would begin again, measured, back and forth, never frantic, just persistent. I started sleeping with headphones on. Didn't help. One night, the footsteps stopped and I sighed in relief, only for them to resume directly above me again, this time slower. One step at a time. It felt like whoever it was knew I was listening. Then it got worse. I began hearing whispering through the vents. Not full conversations, just fragments, breathy syllables, like someone speaking to themselves or praying in reverse. I'd strain to hear, trying to catch words, but every time I focused, they'd fade. I started recording the sound at night on my phone. One time, when I played it back, I heard my name. Not clearly, not loudly, but unmistakably. Nina. I didn't sleep that night. I finally messaged the property manager, told her I thought the upstairs tenant was acting strange, that maybe they were unstable, that maybe they needed help. She replied, "What tenant?" I stared at the text, rereading it over and over. I typed, "The one above me," in the top unit. She replied within seconds, "Top unit's been vacant for 6 months." I didn't believe her. I couldn't. So I walked upstairs myself. Middle unit, locked. No noise. Top unit, door closed, dusty windows, mail wedged in the slot, unopened. But the lights were on. I saw it as I stepped back. A dim orange glow from behind the curtains, like an old lamp left on for someone coming home late. Except no one had come home, and no one ever left. I brought it up again to the property manager. She came by with a key. Together we opened the door to the top unit. The smell hit first. Stale air, dust, mildew. The furniture was covered in white sheets. A single wooden chair had been placed in the middle of the living room, and on the wall etched into the plaster were small lines, hundreds of them, like tally marks. In clusters of 5, she frowned and said, "Kids must have snuck in." But I was shaking, because I counted some of the groups, 1 per night, for months. She locked the door and promised to check the windows. That night, the pacing returned. I started seeing things in the mirror, not directly, just movement behind me, a shape in the reflection that vanished when I turned. One night, I saw a man standing in the hallway behind me, half in shadow. His mouth was open too wide, and I could swear his feet weren't touching the ground. When I turned around, nothing. I began keeping all the lights on. Didn't matter. The darkness found its way in anyway. One morning, I found footprints on my basement floor. Bare, wet, muddy, leading from the wall vent to my bedroom door. I checked every lock, every window, everything was secure. But the footprints were real. I cleaned them, took photos first, sent them to a friend hoping she'd have a rational explanation. She just replied, "That's not your footprint. Whose is it?" I didn't have an answer. I started digging into the history of the house. Turns out the property had a long string of tenant complaints: noise, objects going missing, reports of break ins, but no signs of entry. The top unit was last leased to a man named Owen 5 years ago. He was never officially reported missing, but he stopped paying rent. Mail piled up. When they finally entered the unit, they found his phone still charging beside his bed, a mug of tea still warm. No one ever found him. It was as if he'd just stood up and disappeared. I started locking my bedroom door at night. Didn't help. One night I woke up and the door was open. I know I locked it. I got out of bed slowly, checked the apartment. It was quiet. But when I returned to my room, there was something under my pillow, a Polaroid of me, sleeping. I called the police. They did a sweep, found no signs of forced entry, no one upstairs. The top unit was empty, clean. I tried to tell them about the pacing, the Polaroid, the footprints. They were polite, but I saw it in their eyes. They thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. Then the whispers became voices. I started hearing them clearly. Don't forget me. I live here too. Let me back in. Once I walked into the kitchen and all the cabinets were open. Every drawer. The fridge door too. Inside the freezer was another photo. This one of Owen. I recognized him from the article. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was staring off to the side, eyes wide, mouth open, like he'd just seen something behind whoever took the photo. I dropped it and backed away. When I looked again, the photo was gone. I tried to move out, gave notice, packed fast. On my last night, I heard the pacing again, but this time it came down the stairs. Step, 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 then across the hallway. Step, step, then silence outside my bedroom. I didn't breathe. The doorknob turned slowly. I was paralyzed, watching it twist, but the lock held. After a full minute, the pressure released. I didn't sleep, just waited for daylight. I moved out the next morning, didn't say goodbye, didn't look back. New place, new locks, top floor studio with no one above me. I thought it was over. But 3 weeks later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid of my new bed, with a caption written in shaky marker: I was already here. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for staying, for daring to hear the things most people pretend not to notice. These stories weren't just meant to scare you. They were meant to remind you. Remind you that not every roommate is someone you find on Craigslist. Not every creak is the house settling. And not every door in your home leads somewhere you should go. Sometimes what lives with us doesn't pay rent. Sometimes it doesn't want to leave. So tonight, when you hear something moving in the other room or find a light on that you're sure you turned off, don't panic. Just smile politely and say goodnight. Because after all, they were here first.